What is the female equivalent of the hero archetype? That's a great question, man. Um, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and of course, the women in my class, and perhaps some of the women online too, are irritated or put off, or maybe just alienated, and perhaps properly so, by the fact that the archetypal hero is masculine. Now, there's complex reasons for that, and I would recommend for those who are actually interested in such things to read Erich Neumann's The Origins and History of Consciousness, and also The Great Mother, which are two great works of Jungian psychology. Camille Paglia, by the way, is a big fan of both of those books, for those of you who might be interested, because Neumann does the best job that I know of describing why the symbolism of the hero is laid out the way it is, why Mother Nature is mother, feminine, and why the hero is masculine. But here's how I've come to understand it, and I'm going to use Christian symbolic language because it's the quickest, it's the shortest route to this sort of explanation. So I would say that in the male psyche, the dragon slaying hero is at the forefront, and so that would be Christ in the archetypal mode, because this dragon he defeats is the evil that is encompassed in within the figure of Satan. So that'd be like the ultimate dragon. And then behind that is the feminine, the compassionate, the caring, and that would be embodied, say, in the Christian figure of Mary. So you have in the male and female soul, let's say you have Christ and Mary, but in the male, Christ is foremost, that's the dragon slayer, we'll say, and Mary is the secondary character. And although both should be very well developed, and that makes for a much better character. And in the female, it's the other way around, is that the maternal slash feminine, so let's say Mary, is at the forefront, and Christ is in the background. The dragon slayer is at the background, but should be well developed. Jung felt that it was possible for men to develop the more feminine side of themselves, especially in the last half of life, which is also when he felt that women should develop the more masculine side of themselves. And we could debate that, but it's a perfectly reasonable proposition. Now, we should note that the figure of Mary is actually what would you say, a heroic figure in and of itself, because you can really understand this if you look at Michelangelo's Pieta. So in that great sculpture, you see Mary who's holding the crucified Christ, and that's basically her son, right? Her son who's just been offered up to the world and betrayed by his friends and broken on the cross. And in other words, he's been subject to the worst that life can throw at him. And the thing about Mary is that she knew initially, when she agreed to give birth to the Savior of mankind, that he would be broken. And that's an archetypal story, because women know in their heart of hearts that their children are going to be broken and killed by the world. That's the human condition. And so and of course a woman who's well developed loves her child more than herself, loves her child more than anyone else, which is something you can't really understand till you've had a child, but is still willing to bring that child into the world, knowing full well what his or her fate will be. And so there's a real heroism in that. And then there's the standard heroism that a woman can undertake, where she develops her masculine side, which is basically what happens, for example, in Sleeping Beauty. When Sleeping Beauty is awakened by the prince's kiss, you can think of that. You can think of her being rescued by an actual man, but you can also think of that as the masculine part of her psyche waking up her unconscious femininity, so that the two of them can unite and rule the kingdom. It's a perfectly reasonable interpretation of that story. And so that would be the development of the masculine side in a female, the side that's stalwart and forthright and willing to go forth into the world and conquer uncertainty. And then there's the Beauty and the Beast archetype, which I think is in some sense the primary female sexual archetype. And Beauty and the Beast is another kind of dragon slaying story. It's more like a dragon taming story, I suppose, where the woman, the virginal woman who's out for an adventure, finds a beastly male. And that's the dangerous man that I was talking about earlier, right? The man who has the capacity, say, to kill, the capacity to harm, the capacity for violence at hand, right? At hand. And then proceeds to tame him, which is a real adventure. And, we know that this is the case because, again, we could refer to those, those rom-coms that are so popular now, with the failed beta males always trying to make friends with the girl and failing. The girls are interested in the rough guys who have the capacity to also be sophisticated and to be, let's not say tamed, but civilized into channeling their harsh roughness, their capacity for evil even, into productive competition and because competition can be very productive, and then the sharing forth of the fruits of that competition with family. And so those are all heroic aspects of feminine being, and they're not to be taken lightly. They're major life tasks and major life contributions. And I guess another part of the heroic element of the female is the subjugation of her own primacy with regards to her child, because my daughter just had a child, by the way, so I'm a grandfather, so hooray for that, and it went really nicely, and I'm so happy about that because A, I love my daughter, and B, I really, really like kids. I think they're so great. And so now I'm going to have a kid around again, so that's great. But I mean, one of the things you notice very rapidly if you're a parent is that you bring someone into the world who's now more important under all circumstances than you are, and there's a heroic subjugation of selfishness that goes along with that, that's deeply characteristic of the properly developed feminine spirit.